Right. So today we're going to be diving into this paper by François Chollet,
Oh, yeah.
the guy who created Keras.
Mm-hmm.
And this is from 2019, so quite a few years ago now.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting paper. It's called On the Measure of Intelligence.
Mm.
And it's really kind of a philosophical look at intelligence. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
Really, not just like, oh, AI is intelligent, but like, what does that word even mean?
Yeah. Yeah. What are we even talking about when we say intelligent?
Right, exactly.
And he really challenges this whole idea that like AI beating humans at games is a sign of like real intelligence.
Yeah, like Deep Blue beating Kasparov
Like,
or
no, exactly, or AlphaGo or any of those.
yeah,
like
Dota 5 thing with Dota.
Yeah, that was a big one, but then it turned out like
Yeah.
humans could still beat it reliably if they weren't like
Right.
champions.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that he was kind of getting at is like, are we just creating these systems that are really, really good at one very narrow thing? Or are we actually trying to build something that's more generally intelligent?
Yeah. Is it just narrow expertise, or are we going for something broader?
Right, and he kind of proposed this idea of a spectrum of generalization in AI.
A spectrum, yeah.
So it's not just like on or off intelligent or not. It's like there are different levels of how well a system can generalize its knowledge and skills.
Yeah, like how flexible and adaptable is it really?
Exactly. And he kind of laid out like 4 distinct levels.
He did, yeah.
On the spectrum. And he argued that like historically AI research has been kind of slowly climbing this ladder, starting with very basic systems that couldn't generalize at all.
Right, like that classic tic-tac-toe example.
Right, exactly. Tic-tac-toe is like, you can solve that with brute force.
Yeah, just try every combination.
There's no intelligence there, really.
Nope, not really.
It's just like a big lookup table.
Exactly. And so he called that like the absence of generalization. The very bottom rung of the ladder.
Got it. So what's the next step up from there?
So the next step up would be what he called local generalization or robustness.
Robustness.
And this is where a system can handle variations within a specific task it's been trained on.
So it's starting to show a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah, it's like imagine an image classifier that can recognize different pictures of cats.
Okay.
Even if they're different breeds or in different poses or whatever. Yeah. It's not just rigidly following a set of rules.
Okay.
It's starting to show some like understanding of the concept of cat.
Right.
Even if it hasn't seen every possible cat picture.
Gotcha. So it's still within that kind of narrow domain of like recognizing cat pictures.
Exactly. But it's showing a little bit more flexibility than just like a completely rule-based system.
Okay, cool. So what's the next level up from there?
So then we get to what he called broad generalization, which is also like flexibility.
Flexibility, okay.
And this is where things start to get really interesting. Because now we're talking about AI that can navigate more diverse real-world scenarios.
Okay.
Like think of self-driving cars or sophisticated AI assistants. Things that can kind of operate more autonomously in complex environments.
So like not just in a simulation or a game, but like in the actual world.
Yeah, exactly. Like dealing with all the messiness and unpredictability of the real world.
Okay, that makes sense. So what about that top level, that extreme generalization?
Right, so that's like the holy grail, the kind of AI that can truly understand and reason like humans do.
Like science fiction AI.
Yeah, basically like think of an AI that could not only solve complex scientific problems, but also like compose music, write poetry, understand human emotion.
Right, like that's a whole other level.
Yeah, it's AI that can seamlessly adapt to any situation and solve problems it's never even encountered before.
So where did he think we stood back in 2019 on this spectrum?
He believed we were right on the edge of achieving broad generalization, like where AI could start to show real flexibility and adaptability in those complex real-world tasks.
Interesting. So we've talked about the spectrum of generalization. What other like key ideas did he present in this paper?
Well, he also kind of dug into this whole idea of the G factor.
Okay, the general intelligence factor.
Yeah, the one we hear so much about.
Right.
But here's the twist. He argued that, like, G, as we understand it in humans, might not be universal.
Okay, so what did he mean by that?
Well, he was basically saying that human G is incredibly powerful within the scope of human experience, but it might not generalize to every possible problem in the universe.
Interesting.
Like, we're wired to be good at things that are relevant to us.
Okay.
Things that are related to our survival and how we evolved.
Right.
But like if you think about it, there might be problems out there that are just so foreign to our way of thinking that our GU wouldn't really help us.
Okay.
But it's kind of like, we excel at 2D navigation.
Right, like walking around on a map.
Exactly. But we really struggle with understanding spaces beyond 3 dimensions.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 dimensions. It's like...
Right, it just breaks our brains.
Yeah.
And he suggested that maybe that's because, like, the structure of our brains, which evolved to meet very specific needs, might actually limit how far our intelligence can generalize.
Okay, so he's kind of saying that, like, our intelligence is sort of specialized for our particular niche in the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're really good at being humans.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean we'd be good at being, like, some hypothetical alien species.
Right, or understanding the universe on some grand scale.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I see where he's going with this. So how does this all relate back to AI?
Well, it raises this really important question about what we're really trying to achieve with AI.
Right.
Like, should we be aiming for some abstract, universally intelligent being? Or should we be focusing on building something more human-like? Something that's adaptable and intelligent within our realm of experience?
Yeah, it's a pretty profound question.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if our current approach to AI development is like setting our sights too high or maybe not high enough in the right direction.
Exactly. And this kind of leads us to another really fascinating point, which is Chollet's proposed definition of intelligence itself. So he defined intelligence as the efficiency with which a system acquires skills from priors, its built-in knowledge and experience.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about what you already know.
Right.
It's about how fast you can learn.
Yeah.
How well you adapt.
Exactly.
To new information.
And he emphasized that, like, when we evaluate AI, we really need to account for those priors.
The built-in knowledge.
Yeah, like the built-in knowledge and the experience.
Right.
It's not just about, like, oh, it can do this impressive thing.
Right.
But, like, did it actually learn that?
Yeah, it's like if I give you a huge encyclopedia and I say, hey, answer all these trivia questions.
Yeah, you're going to look really smart.
You're going to ace it.
But you didn't really learn anything.
Exactly.
You just had all the information already.
Right, and it's like the classic example of like a baby.
Right.
They're not born knowing calculus. They have to learn and build on what they know.
You're constantly adapting.
Constantly adapting. Yeah, and I think that's a really important point that he was making.
Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of babies and like innate knowledge, didn't he have some specific ideas about like what kind of core knowledge
he did.
should be built into AI?
He laid out a set of what he called core knowledge priors.
Okay, so what are we talking about here? Like what kind of priors?
So he starts with what he called objectness priors.
Okay, objectness.
Which are basically like the basic understandings that humans have about objects.
Like what makes an object an object?
Yeah, like things like object cohesion, persistence. The fact that objects exist even when you can't see them.
Right.
Like if I put this pen under the table, you still know it's there.
I know it's still there. It hasn't magically disappeared.
Exactly. But like an AI system might not know that.
Right. It might just be like, oh, well, I can't see it anymore, so it doesn't exist.
Right, exactly.
So he was arguing that like these priors are really important.
Yeah, if we want AI to truly understand the world, they need those same building blocks.
Okay, so objectness is one category. What else did he include in these core knowledge priors?
He also talked about the importance of agentness and goal-directedness priors.
Okay, agentness and goal-directedness. Break that down for me.
So basically it means that humans instinctively understand that some things in the world are just like inanimate objects.
Right.
And then other things are agents.
Like people.
Yeah, like people or animals, things that have their own intentions and goals.
Right, like if I see a ball rolling down a hill, I assume it's just physics at work.
Right.
But if I see a person walking towards a store, I'm like, oh, they're going shopping.
Yeah, they probably have a reason for going there.
They have a goal in mind.
Exactly. And he argued that like this ability to distinguish between objects and agents and to understand that agents act with intention is like crucial for navigating the world.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And it's something that current AI systems really struggle with.
It's true. We're constantly making assumptions about why people do the things they do.
Right.
And without that ability, it would be really hard to interact with the world in any kind of meaningful way.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so we've got objectness, we've got agentness and goal-directedness. What else is in this core knowledge bucket?
He also mentioned that, like, we have these number and counting priors.
Okay,
This
numbing.
inherent understanding of quantities and,
Yeah.
like, basic arithmetic.
Even babies have some grasp of numbers.
Yeah, like, even babies have some grasp of, like, more and less.
Right. It's kind of hardwired into our brains.
Yeah, totally. And, like, that foundation helps us learn more complex math later on.
Right.
But, like, AI systems don't necessarily have that foundation. So he was arguing that, like, we need to build that in.
Interesting. So numbers and counting.
And then finally, he argued for the importance of basic geometry and topology priors.
Geometry and topology. So like shapes and spaces.
Yeah, like our understanding of shapes, distances, spatial relationships.
Like inside and outside, above and below.
Yeah, exactly. All those things that we use to kind of navigate our environment.
Right. And recognize objects from different angles and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing how much like we take all this stuff for granted.
It's true.
Like we just know how the world works.
Right.
But AI systems don't.
They have to learn it all from scratch.
Yeah. So he was basically saying that instead of treating AI like blank slates, we need to give them a head start.
Yeah, equip them with the same intuitive knowledge that humans have.
Right.
And that's a really different way of thinking about AI development.
Yeah, it's a much more grounded and realistic approach.
Exactly.
I like it. So, okay, we've got this list of core knowledge priors.
Right.
But, like, how do we actually teach those to an AI?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. Well, he didn't really lay out like a step-by-step guide in this paper.
Right.
But he did suggest some pretty intriguing avenues for research.
Okay, so what were some of those?
One that he was particularly excited about was program synthesis.
Program synthesis. Okay, I've heard that term, but I'm not sure I totally get what it is.
So basically, it's the idea of teaching AI to write computer programs.
Oh, hold on. So we're going to have AI writing AI.
I know, it sounds kind of crazy.
Getting a little meta.
It does sound a little meta, but it actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it.
Okay, how so?
Well, like, writing code is all about breaking down a complex problem into smaller, more manageable steps, right?
That's the basic idea.
And that kind of problem solving is something that humans are naturally good at.
Right. We're good at like abstracting things and breaking things down into steps.
Exactly. And so Chollet's idea was that if we can teach AI to do the same thing, to think about problems in a structured, programmatic way, it could lead to major breakthroughs in AI development.
So instead of like us painstakingly programming every single rule and instruction, we'd be teaching it to figure out those rules for itself.
Exactly. And the beauty of this approach is that it forces the AI to develop a much deeper understanding of the problem it's trying to solve.
Right. It's like the difference between memorizing a bunch of facts and actually understanding the concepts behind those facts.
Precisely. And that kind of conceptual understanding is essential if we want AI to be able to truly generalize and adapt.
Right. So program synthesis definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating area of research.
But what about those other kind of out-of-the-box ideas that he mentioned?
Oh, you mean like the open-ended adversarial or collaborative tests?
Yeah, those sounded really interesting.
Yeah, those are some of his most radical suggestions.
I remember you mentioned something about AI learning from each other.
Yeah.
Or even from humans.
Exactly. Like, imagine a scenario where you have two AIs. One acting as a teacher and the other as a student.
Okay, so like an AI mentor.
Yeah. And the teacher, AI, is given a task to solve, and it has to come up with a way to teach that task to the student AI.
So it's not just like giving it the answer.
Right. It's like actually figuring out how to explain it.
It has to teach.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And the really interesting part is that the teacher AI wouldn't necessarily be limited to using human-like teaching methods.
So it could come up with completely new ways of teaching?
Yeah, it could come up with ways that we might not even understand.
That's a little scary, but also really cool.
Yeah, it's like creating this whole new ecosystem of intelligence.
Right, and we're just kind of watching it happen.
Exactly, like we're the observers.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, it's a really thought-provoking paper.
It really makes you think differently about what intelligence even is.
For sure.
And how we might go about building it into machines.
It definitely challenges a lot of our assumptions.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. You know, we need to be constantly questioning and pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible.
Absolutely.
So if we start to see intelligence, as Chollet did, as this ability to learn and adapt, what new possibilities might open up?
It's exciting to think about.
Yeah, it feels like we're just at the beginning of something really big.
I think so, too.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.